I never thought I'd be posting here, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some advice. This is a long story, so bear with me. I'm Derek, 34M, and I've been married to Sophia, 32F, for 8 years. We met in our mid-20s at a local community center where I was volunteering. I was teaching art to underprivileged kids, and she was there for a networking event. It was one of those instant connections. 1 minute we were talking about the importance of community service, and the next, we were planning our first date. Growing up, I always had a passion for art. My parents weren't wealthy, but they always encouraged my creativity. My dad worked as a carpenter, and my mom was an elementary school teacher. They taught me the value of hard work and finding joy in helping others. I remember spending countless hours in our small backyard, painting landscapes on any surface I could find, old pieces of wood, cardboard boxes, even the fence, much to my dad's initial dismay, though he later said it brightened up the yard. After high school, I got a scholarship to study art at a local college. It was there that I discovered art therapy. I was fascinated by the idea of using art to help people heal and express themselves. I volunteered at a nearby children's hospital, doing art projects with kids undergoing treatments. Seeing their faces light up as they created something beautiful amid their struggles solidified my decision to pursue this as a career. Sophia, on the other hand, came from a more affluent background. Her parents were both successful lawyers, and she grew up with certain expectations about lifestyle and career success. She studied marketing in college and had always been driven to climb the corporate ladder. When we met, she was working entry-level at a marketing firm but had big plans for her future. Despite our different backgrounds, we clicked. Sophia loved my compassionate nature and my ability to find beauty in the simplest things. I was drawn to her ambition and the way she could light up a room with her confidence. We balanced each other out perfectly. I didn't need to go out of my way to impress her or bring expensive gifts. I'd surprise her with a sketch I made of her, and she'd frame it and hang it in our apartment. After we got married, I took a job at a non-profit organization that provides art therapy services to underprivileged communities. The pay wasn't great, but I loved the work. I felt that helping people express themselves through art was my calling. I worked with a diverse range of clients, from children with learning disabilities to veterans dealing with PTSD. Every day brought new challenges and rewards. Sophia started working for a big marketing firm, quickly moving up the ranks. She had a natural talent for networking and always seemed to know the right thing to say to impress her bosses. I admired her drive, even if I didn't always understand it. For the first few years, things were great. We lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't fancy, but it was cozy and filled with both my artwork and little trinkets Sophia would bring back from her business trips. We saved money where we could and made the most of our time together. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and that seemed to be enough. We would spend our weekends exploring local art galleries, trying out new recipes, or just relaxing at home with a good book or movie. I remember one Saturday when we decided to have an at-home paint night. We spread newspapers all over the living room floor, set up easels, and spent hours painting and laughing at our attempts to recreate famous artworks. Sophia's version of the Starry Night ended up looking more like swirling spaghetti, and we laughed so hard we had tears in our eyes. As Sophia's career began to take off, I couldn't have been prouder. Seeing her hard work and dedication pay off was incredible. I remember the day she got her first big promotion. I had just finished a particularly emotional session with a young client who had recently lost a parent. I was emotionally drained but felt fulfilled knowing I had helped this child express their grief through art. When I checked my phone, I saw Sophia's excited text. She'd been promoted to a senior marketing position, and it came with a substantial raise. We celebrated that night by cooking her favorite meal together, a complex pasta dish we'd been perfecting for months. We opened a bottle of wine we'd been saving for a special occasion and stayed up late, talking about our dreams and plans for the future. I even surprised her with a small painting I'd been working on in secret, a beautiful landscape of the park where we had our first date. Sophia teared up when she saw it, saying it was the most thoughtful gift she'd ever received. But things started to change about a year ago. Sophia came home one day, talking about how her colleagues were all going on exotic vacations and buying luxury cars. She'd just attended a company retreat at a high-end resort, and I could see a shift in her. She asked if we could also go on a more extravagant vacation. I agreed, thinking it would be nice to treat ourselves. We booked a trip to a tropical resort, far more expensive than our usual getaways. Sophia paid for most of it, but I contributed what I could from my savings. I was shocked by the kind of things she wanted to do there, dining at Michelin-starred restaurants, booking exclusive excursions, shopping at high-end boutiques. It was so unlike her, but I went along with it, wanting her to enjoy herself. I tried to find a balance, suggesting we also do some local, more authentic experiences. We visited a small village and participated in a traditional art workshop. I thought Sophia enjoyed it. She even bought a handmade bracelet from one of the local artisans. But later, I overheard her on the phone with a colleague, laughing about the quaint experience and how she couldn't wait to get back to the resort spa. When we got back, Sophia seemed happier than ever, but it didn't last long. She started talking about moving to a bigger apartment in a trendier neighborhood. She began buying expensive clothes and accessories, saying she needed to look the part for her job. I supported her as much as I could, But I couldn't help feeling a growing disconnect. Our simple dates became a thing of the past. Sophia no longer wanted to explore local art galleries or try out new recipes at home. Instead, she was always pushing for fancy restaurants and exclusive events. We stopped having our quiet nights in, as she was always working late or networking with her new high-powered friends. One day, I suggested we have a picnic in the park, just like we used to. I had spent the morning preparing a basket with all her favorites: crusty bread, artisanal cheeses, fresh fruit, and a bottle of wine. I even packed a sketch pad and some pencils, thinking we could spend the afternoon drawing together like we used to. Sophia laughed and said she'd outgrown such childish activities. She wanted to go to a new upscale restaurant instead. I tried to explain that I missed our simple times together, but she brushed it off, saying I needed to grow up and start thinking about our future. As time went on, Sophia's dissatisfaction with our life grew. She started making comments about my job, suggesting I should look for something more prestigious and better paying. She'd compare me to her colleagues' husbands, who were all high-earning professionals. Once, she even suggested I go back to school to become a real doctor instead of an art therapist. I tried to explain that my job was fulfilling and that I was making a real difference in people's lives, but she couldn't seem to understand. She'd say things like, "That's great, Derek, but we can't pay our bills with good intentions." It hurt to hear her dismiss my passion like that. I reminded her of the progress my clients were making, of the breakthroughs we'd achieved through art. I told her about a teenage client who had started speaking again after months of silence, all because of our art therapy sessions. But Sophia just rolled her eyes and said, "That's nice, but it doesn't get us a bigger house or a better car." The final straw came when Sophia's company had a big charity gala. I wore my best suit, which admittedly wasn't very fancy, and tried to mingle with her colleagues. But I could see the embarrassment on Sophia's face when I talked about my work. Later that night, she exploded, saying I was holding her back and that she was tired of having a husband she couldn't be proud of. I was stunned. I asked her if she still loved me, or if she just loved the idea of what I could be. She didn't answer right away, and the silence was deafening. Finally, she said, "I do love you, Derek, but I hate our life. I want more, and I thought you did too." I told her that I loved our life, or at least the life we used to have. I asked her if she could still love me if I didn't change, if I stayed the same compassionate, art-loving guy she fell in love with. She didn't answer, and I knew then that our marriage was in serious trouble. Now, we can barely look at each other. Sophia comes home late every night and sleeps in the guest room. If we happen to be in the same room, she finds an excuse to leave. Yesterday, I tried to hold her hand as we were leaving the house, and she pulled away as if my touch disgusted her. I feel lost and hurt. I don't know what I did to deserve this response from her. I'm considering suggesting we take a break to think about where our relationship is heading. But is that too harsh? Right now, everything feels harsh to me. It's incredibly difficult to see the love of my life treat me like I'm nothing. What do you think I should do? Has anyone been in a similar situation? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who offered their support and advice after my last post. Your comments and messages have been a lifeline during this incredibly difficult time. After much consideration, I decided to have an honest conversation with Sophia about our relationship. I suggested we take a break to reevaluate things. To my surprise, she agreed without hesitation. She moved in with her sister, and I stayed in our apartment. The silence that followed was both a relief and a torture. I missed the Sophia I fell in love with, but I didn't miss the constant criticism and disappointment. The first few days were the hardest. I'd come home from work, expecting to see her there, only to be met with an empty apartment. I found myself talking out loud sometimes, forgetting for a moment that she wasn't there to answer. During this break, I had a lot of time to reflect on my life choices. I reaffirmed my love for art therapy and the impact it has on people's lives. I thought about all the clients I'd helped over the years, the children who found a voice through their artwork, the adults who processed trauma through creative expression. I realized that while I wanted to support Sophia and make her happy, I couldn't change the core of who I am. I spent a lot of time in my small home studio, painting and sketching. It had been a while since I'd created art just for myself, without the pressure of it being a gift for Sophia or something to sell. I found myself pouring my emotions onto the canvas, the confusion, the hurt, but also the hope for a brighter future. One weekend, I decided to volunteer at a local shelter, teaching an art class to homeless youth. It was challenging but incredibly rewarding. Seeing these kids, who had so little, find joy in creating art reminded me of why I chose this path in the first place. One young girl, no more than 12, painted a picture of a house with a big family inside. When I asked her about it, she said it was her dream for the future. It broke my heart but also reaffirmed my commitment to using art to help others heal and hope. That being said, I also understood that growth and compromise are part of any relationship. I started looking into opportunities that would allow me to advance in my field without compromising my values. I reached out to some colleagues and mentors, asking for advice and keeping an ear out for potential opportunities. As luck would have it, I found out about a position at a prestigious hospital that was starting an art therapy program for their pediatric oncology ward. It was a big step up from my current role, more responsibility, a chance to build a program from the ground up, and yes, better pay. But more importantly, it was an opportunity to make an even bigger impact, to bring art therapy to children facing the toughest battles of their young lives. I applied for the position and went through several rounds of interviews. Each time I spoke about my vision for the program, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I imagined the difference we could make in these children's lives, how we could bring color and creativity into the sterile hospital environment. While all this was happening, Sophia and I had minimal contact. We'd text occasionally to discuss practical matters, but we hadn't seen each other in weeks. I was nervous but excited to tell her about this new opportunity, hoping it might be a way to bridge the gap between us. I thought maybe if she saw that I was growing in my career, but in a way that stayed true to my passions, she might understand me better. I decided to call her and ask if we could meet to talk. She agreed, and we set a date to meet at a neutral location, a cafe we used to frequent in the early days of our relationship. I spent hours preparing what I would say, how I would explain my new opportunity and my hopes for our future. But when the day came, Sophia showed up with a manila envelope in her hands. Before I could even begin to tell her about the hospital position, she slid the envelope across the table. Inside were divorce papers. She explained, in a cold, detached voice that I hardly recognized, that she couldn't be with someone who lacked ambition and couldn't provide the lifestyle she desired. She mentioned her new social circle and how they would look down on someone in my profession. She said she deserved more than what I could offer. I was devastated but also angry. I realized that no matter what I did, it would never be enough to satisfy her growing materialistic desires. The woman sitting across from me was not the Sophia I had fallen in love with. I took the divorce papers and told her I needed time to think. After she left, I sat in that cafe for hours, nursing a cold cup of coffee and thinking about our entire relationship, from the early days of our love to the recent years of growing apart. It was clear that we had both changed, and while I still cared for her, I couldn't ignore the fact that we were no longer compatible. I've decided to sign the divorce papers. It's painful, but I realize now that staying in this marriage would mean losing myself. I plan on taking the new job at the hospital and focusing on my personal growth. I'll update you all once the divorce is finalized. Thank you again for your support during this challenging time. Update 2. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you all an update on what's been happening since my last post. First of all, thank you again for your unwavering support. Your messages and encouragement have truly been a lifeline for me. The divorce has been finalized. It was a difficult and emotionally draining process, but it's finally over. Sophia and I managed to keep things civil, dividing our assets without too much conflict. She got most of our shared possessions, which was fine by me. I've never been one for material things anyway. After the divorce was finalized, I took some time to process everything and figure out my next steps. I'm happy to say that I did take that job at the hospital. It's been challenging but incredibly rewarding. I'm working with children battling cancer, using art therapy to help them express their feelings and cope with their treatments. My first week on the job was intense. I remember walking into the pediatric oncology ward, seeing all those brave kids hooked up to machines, some of them having lost their hair to chemotherapy. It was overwhelming at first, but then I saw a little boy, no more than 6, drawing a picture of himself as a superhero. When I asked him about it, he said, "This is me, beating the bad guys in my body." That moment reminded me why I do this work. We've been making progress with the program. I've introduced various art projects tailored to different age groups and treatment stages. One of my favorites is the Journey Jars, where kids fill clear jars with layers of colored sand, each color representing a stage of their treatment journey. It's a visual way for them to see how far they've come and to look forward to filling the jar to the top when they finish treatment. On a more personal note, I've made some changes in my life. I moved to a small, cozy apartment closer to the hospital. It's filled with my artwork and plants. It feels more like me than our old place ever did. I've set up a small studio space in the spare room, where I can work on my personal art projects when I'm not at the hospital. I've also rekindled my love for painting and have even sold a few pieces at local art fairs. Last month, I participated in a charity auction where one of my paintings, a colorful, abstract piece inspired by my work with the kids at the hospital, sold for a surprising amount. All proceeds went to the pediatric oncology ward, which felt amazing. I've been spending more time with friends and family who have been incredibly supportive throughout this whole ordeal. My sister, Emily, 30F, has been especially amazing. She's been checking in on me regularly and even set me up with a gym membership, insisting that exercise would be good for my mental health. She was right, those endorphins really do help. As for Sophia, we no longer have any contact. The last time I saw her was when she came to collect the last of her things from our old apartment. She seemed different, colder, somehow. She barely looked at me as she packed up her belongings, and the few words we exchanged were purely practical. As she was leaving, she paused at the door and looked back at me for a moment. I thought I saw a flicker of something, regret, maybe, in her eyes, but then it was gone, and so was she. I heard through mutual friends that she's dating one of her colleagues now, someone who apparently fits better into her new lifestyle. They said she's been promoted again and is now driving a luxury car and living in a high-rise apartment downtown. I wish her well, but I can't say I miss the person she became. I won't lie and say it's been easy. There are still days when I miss the Sophia I fell in love with, the one who used to appreciate the simple joys in life. Sometimes I'll catch myself thinking about calling her to share a funny story or a success at work, only to remember that's not our reality anymore. But those days are becoming fewer and farther between. I'm learning to appreciate my own company and the freedom to live life on my own terms. For now, I'm focusing on healing and moving forward. I'm not ready to date yet, but I'm open to the possibility in the future. Right now, my priority is my work, my art, and rediscovering who I'm outside of my marriage. Thank you all again for your support. Your kind words and advice have meant more than you know. I'll update you all again if there are any significant changes. Update 3, hello again, everyone. It's been a while since my last update, and I wanted to share some developments in my life. First off, work at the hospital has been going incredibly well. I've been able to establish a comprehensive art therapy program for the pediatric oncology ward, and the results have been amazing. We've expanded from individual sessions to group workshops, and even started a weekly art cart that goes room to room for kids who are too sick to come to the art room. One of our recent projects was creating a large mural in the ward's playroom. We had kids, parents, and even some of the medical staff contribute to it. It's a bright, colorful scene of a fantastical forest, filled with magical creatures and hidden details. The kids love pointing out which parts they painted, and I've noticed it often serves as a conversation starter for children who are just meeting each other. Seeing these brave kids find joy and expression through art, even in their toughest moments, has been the most rewarding experience of my career. Last week, one of our long-term patients, a 12-year-old girl named Lily, finished her last round of chemo. As part of her celebration, she asked if she could paint a picture in the art room. She created this beautiful image of a phoenix rising from ashes. When I asked her about it, she said, "That's me, Mr. Derek. I'm going to rise up stronger than ever." I'll admit, I had to step out of the room for a moment to compose myself after that. On a personal note, I've been doing a lot better. The pain of the divorce has subsided, and I've found a new sense of peace and purpose. I've thrown myself into my artwork, experimenting with new techniques and subjects. I've been working on a series inspired by my experiences at the hospital, not the sadness or illness, but the strength, hope, and resilience I see every day. I'm excited to share that I've been offered a spot in a local art gallery. It's a small exhibition, but it's a start, and I'm thrilled to have my work recognized. The exhibition is themed around healing through art, and I'll be showing some of my personal pieces as well as a collaborative piece I worked on with some of the kids from the hospital. I've also made some new friends through a local community art program where I volunteer on weekends. We meet up to paint outdoors, sketch at cafes, or visit museums together. It's been great to connect with people who share my passion for creativity and giving back to the community. As for Sophia, I haven't heard from her directly, but I did run into her sister at a coffee shop a few weeks ago. She told me that Sophia and her new boyfriend had moved to another city for a job opportunity. I was surprised to find that the news didn't affect me as much as I thought it would. I truly hope she's happy and has found what she was looking for. In an unexpected turn of events, I've started seeing someone. Her name is Claire, 33F, and she's a music therapist I met through work. We bonded over our shared passion for using arts and healing, and things progressed naturally from there. It's still very new, and we're taking things slow, but it's nice to connect with someone who understands the value of what I do and appreciates the simpler things in life. Last weekend, we went on a picnic in the park, something I haven't done in years, and it felt wonderful to share that simple joy with someone again. Looking back, I realized that the end of my marriage, while painful, was necessary for both Sophia and me to grow and find happiness. I'm no longer bitter about what happened. Instead, I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned and the strength I've found in myself. To anyone out there going through a similar situation, hang in there. It does get better. Focus on what truly matters to you, surround yourself with supportive people, and don't be afraid to start over. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your kindness and encouragement have meant the world to me. I may not update again unless something significant happens, but know that I'm doing well and looking forward to what the future holds.